Hello, it's Tracy Farquhar here once again with the tarot reading for the week ahead. Today is March 31st, and this is what I got for us both as a collective, and some of this may apply to you individually as well. So, as usual, I pulled four cards, the first three representing past, present, and future. The fourth card is the card that wraps up the whole reading. So the first thing I noticed about this reading is that there are three major arcana cards, which are really strong, powerful cards. And there seems to be a sense of real strong power, a sense of wanting to remind us of our own power, and a sense of taking action. So let's go through each card. The past card is the Seven of Cups. Looks like that in my deck, which is the Barbara Walker deck. The word on that card in my deck is dream. Cups is the suit of the heart, the emotional self, the intuitive self, the higher self. And as a sense of it talking about dreams, to me, it is more about a sense of setting intentions, having a sense of taking what you have dreamed about and putting it into some sense of possibility and potential. Instead of just something that you wish, this is now something that you can see as possible. Since it's coming up in the past, I think it's asking you to draw on the experiences that you have had, both possibly in the recent past or the long ago past, that may have helped you to get some clarity about what you really want. Some of those experiences could be seen as contrast. So we all experience things that we don't want. And what we can do with those experiences is to say, all right, instead of that, I want this. And I'm going to visualize that, and I'm going to see it as a possibility. I'm going to ask for guidance in the way to start moving toward that intention. And then I'm going to pay attention to the guidance that comes, which can be in the form of an intuitive download, just a sense of some action you need to take. But for now, it's talking about that actual intention. And I think that's always an important thing to do in our lives. We often get so caught up in the present moment, what needs to be done, running on that hamster wheel of all of the responsibilities and obligations that we have, that we forget that we have the power to create our future. And the foundation of that power, I believe, is some sense of intention. Otherwise, it starts to feel like life is just happening to you randomly, rather than, okay, I'm heading in this direction. And I'm going to trust that the guidance is going to come and that I'm going to be led into the right action. I'm going to take that action. And in fact, the second card is about that action. So it's a really relevant card to come up after this first one. So the first one is about dreams and intentions. The second one is the Chariot. This is the present card. And as you can see, the Chariot is a vehicle. And so it is about moving forward. It's about taking action. It's about stepping on the gas. So moving from that sense of this is what I want, this internal vision, it's now this is what I'm going to do about it. And that's often very difficult for us to start to take action on something that we're not so sure is even possible. We're not really sold on the idea that this is in our highest good, even though we're feeling that. The logical mind may come in and say, well, that's not practical, that's not possible. But the Chariot is saying, take a few small steps in that direction. I have the sense that, when we start to walk a path, it becomes revealed to us. Sometimes we can't see that path very clearly. until we start taking some small steps, until we start taking some action. And that action can be anything from doing research to creating a vision board, creating lists, or writing down some of the things that you want, talking to people, making some contacts, looking into things. And every time you do something like that, you're pointing your energy in that direction. When you're just kind of dreaming and not taking action, it's still a strong energy, but you may not be directing enough of your energy in the direction that you would like to go. So this feels like a good week to start taking some steps toward what you want. And at the very least, starting to clarify what that is. And that can be with some journaling, some writing down of, this is how I want my life to feel. This is how I want the experiences in my life to feel. This is what I want to experience. And this is what makes me happy. Sometimes it's hard to come up with those things, but that means that it's even more important for you to get some clarity about that. And that's a really relevant action step to get that clarity. And then what do I want to do about it? The other aspect of this Chariot card that stands out is the two horses there. So you got a white horse and black horse there. And this is, again, my deck that shows it that way. Sometimes I feel like those horses can represent a sense of indecision. And usually that indecision is based on the kind of battle between the head and the heart. So the heart, the intuitive self, the higher self, may be longing for something or wanting to kind of direct you in a certain way. It could be that you have some passions in your life that you would like to see expand. But your logical mind comes in and can sometimes talk you out of those things. The logical mind is imperative to our daily life, but it's also extremely vulnerable to all of the influence that we have around us from what we've been taught throughout our lives, that what we're supposed to aspire to, what other people are doing, what our culture dictates to us. We don't realize how influenced we are by all of those things and more. And so we'll get caught up in that internal battle. And normally, most of us will default to the thinking mind because that's what we've been taught to do. So in that case, just like the way these horses are kind of pointing in different directions, we're not going to get very far, because we have this kind of push and pull going on. So again, it doesn't mean you have to now completely change your life overnight, but it means let's start to get a sense of direction. Let's start to point in a certain direction and start to make the small steps that we feel will start the wheels in motion to get us to where we want to be. And you always have the opportunity to stop. You always have the opportunity to backtrack if it doesn't feel right. The third card is the Emperor, another major arcana card. Very, very powerful one. When you think of what an emperor represents, it is someone who is very powerful, who is very mature, who has had a lot of life experience, who has been given that role for a reason. And as the card coming up in the future, I think it's asking you to consider your own attributes and your own strengths and how far you have already come in your life. There is a sense of real confidence in this card. And the way that we build up our confidence is to consider all the things we have achieved, all the obstacles we have overcome, even the small things that we don't normally celebrate. If we really look at the whole truth of what our life has been, there's a lot that we have achieved and overcome despite the odds, despite the obstacles. And we don't give ourselves enough credit for that, for the most part. So the Emperor is coming up here to say, look at how powerful you are. Look at how the decisions that you've made in your life have created this trajectory of your life. And just feel that sense of confidence in yourself. You don't need to prove that to anyone, including yourself. You don't need to prove it, it's already there. So this emperor, the image on the card, he's laid down his shield. He's not in battle. He's not fighting anyone. He's kind of in repose. He's just saying, I know who I am. I deserve this post of emperor. I deserve to be respected for who I am, what I've accomplished. And I'm going to proceed from that point. So, that these three cards, the trajectory of them is so clear. If we don't have confidence in ourselves, it's hard to take action. So, going back to the Chariot, that sense of feeling content that what we are focused on is what's going to be in our best interest. And also, like I said, knowing that that may change at some point, but still having the confidence in ourselves to achieve what we want, also confidence in the higher powers that are helping us out. And, looking back on our life and saying, if I got through all of that, I can certainly continue to move forward and create the life that I really want, the life of my dreams, the life I'm intending. The last card is another major arcana card, and it's a really positive one. So it feels like this is a very powerful week for change, for making decisions, for getting clarity and starting to take action. The Wheel of Fortune sums this up really beautifully. Okay. So the Wheel of Fortune reminds us that time is cyclical. It's not linear. We have to live in a sense of linear time as humans. Everything has a beginning and an ending. The day has a beginning and an ending, the weeks, the months. But actually, when we look at nature, when we really look at the way time works, it is cyclical. Right now, here on the East Coast, we are moving into spring. We are watching the trees start to bloom, leaves start to show up on the limbs of the trees, things growing up out of the ground. A few months ago, that wasn't the case. So in the fall, the leaves fell, everything turned brown, everything went dormant. But that wasn't the end. There wasn't one day where winter ended, spring began. It is a cyclical process. And spring will then start to meld into summer, which will then move into fall. And it's the same with our lives. So if you're feeling like there's change in the air for you, and there certainly is for us as a collective, recognize that it is never a starting over, because that's very daunting for us to think that we have to start our lives over. We're never starting our lives over. It's a continuum. We're taking all of the experience and wisdom and knowledge that we have accumulated, and we are moving it in a slightly different direction. I like to see it as leveling up. We always have the opportunity to level up, take it to the next level, learn something new, be able to, shift into a different gear. As I've said before in these readings, we are connected to the universe. We are directly connected with the universe. The universe is constantly expanding. So it's natural for us to want to expand and natural for us to feel stuck if we're not learning and growing. But we always have the opportunity to do that. However, we do sometimes get in our own way because it feels intimidating. I don't want to start my life over. I'm too old. I'm too set in my ways, whatever the excuses are. And then we start to feel that our life is kind of flat. So the Wheel of Fortune is saying there's always opportunity to start something new, to bring your life experience to a different level, to allow yourself the opportunity to continue to grow and change. And again, this is for you as an individual, as a human being. It's also for us as a collective, absolutely in a time of change. And to me, this is saying we get to decide what that is. And we need to have the faith in ourselves that we can collectively create this. What do we want it to be? Such a powerful reading for this week. And I hope your week unfolds in a very powerful way and that we do come together as a collective to create positive change. I feel in my heart that we will. Thanks for joining me once again. I can be found on tracyfarquhar.com, and I'll see you again next week. Thank you. Bye.